Okay, so we will take a look at a couple of these problems together. If you look at, let's say, problem number 7, the directions want us to write the equation of a circle if its center is located at -11, -8, which is in the third quadrant, and it has a radius of 4. Well, the equation of the circle can be written if you know two key things. You need to know where the center is, and you need to know the radius length. And the formula for this circle is going to be x minus h. And of course, h is the first value, or what would normally be considered the x value. And of course, k is the y value. And we use h and k so that you'll know that this is a circle. And if I say x minus -11, that's really x plus 11. And since this is a circle, I'm going to have to raise this to the power of 2. So there's your x minus h. Then we have to say plus y minus k. Well, y minus -8 is actually y plus 8. And we will have to square that. And finally, we're going to set that equal to the radius squared. Well, if the radius is 4, then 4 squared is going to be 16. So this is the equation for the circle if the center is at -11, -8, and has a radius of 4. Let's look at number 8. Here the center is also in the third quadrant. It's at -6, -15, and the radius happens to be the square root of 5. Okay, so going back to the formula, this has to be x minus -6, which is x plus 6 to the power of 2. Plus, now we have to do y minus -15, which is y plus 15. And again, since it's a circle, we have to raise it to the power of 2. And that's going to equal the radius squared. Now remember, if you have the square root of 5, that's the radius, right? If you take the square root of a number and then square it, the result is the radicand, right? It's the value under the radical. So the square root of 5 squared is 5. So the square root of 5 squared, or the radius squared, would just be 5 in this case. Let's take a look at numbers 9 and 10. This time they're going to give you the circle's formula, which means you can tell the center, right? The center here would be at 16, 6. So the center of this circle is actually in quadrant 1, and it has a radius of 1. But they want to move this circle around. They want to move it 4 units up and 4 units to the left and 2 units up. Well, what happens if you take a graph and you slide it 4 units to the left? Well, if you move to the left, that means your x value is going to get smaller. And we know that the x value on the center is at 16. And if we move it 4 to the left, the center is going to end up at x is 12, right? If the center of the circle is at 16, let's say this is x is 16. If we slide back 4 to the left, then the 16 would end up becoming a 12. So the center of the circle is going to be at 12 something, right? So that's going to be x minus 12. Squared plus, but then they tell us that the y value is going 2 up. Well, the y value is +6, right? It's this value here. And if you add 2 to 6, the y value becomes 8. So that would now be y minus 8 squared. And just because you slide a circle around, it may change the x and y values, right? Or the center point values, but it doesn't change the radius. The size of the circle does not change. What about number 10? On problem number 10, we have the equation of the circle, but this time we're going to slide it 5 to the left and 4 down. So if we slide our x value to the left, let's see, right now our center of the circle is going to be where? Well, let's look at the formula. Since this is plus 5, that's really minus negative 5. So the x value, or the h value, is negative 5. And the y value, this is y plus 7, which is also y minus negative 7. So this is the center of the circle. But we're going to move this, right? We're going to translate this thing. We're going to go 5 to the left. Well, if you go 5 to the left, then your x value has to get smaller, right? So you're going to go to negative 10 because you went 5 to the left. And then you have to go 4 down. Well, if you move the circle down, that changes the y value. And right now the y value is sitting at negative 7. And if we go 4 down, negative 7 minus 4 more is negative 11. So this is going to be the center after we translate. So what would that formula be? Well, it's going to be x minus negative 10, or x plus 10, squared, plus y plus 11 squared, and of course the radius is still 6, right? 6 squared is 36. Just because we slide a circle does not mean the circle gets larger. So the radius of the circle is actually the same. Let's write equations for the circle in problem number 11 and 12. If you look at number 11, it appears to me that the center of the circle is right here. So that's going to be the point 0, 3. And if I go straight from the center all the way over to here, it looks to me like the radius, if I look at this number line here, 1, 2, 3, looks like the radius is also 3. And the equation of the circle is going to be x minus h. Well, h is 0, so that's just going to be x minus 0, which is x, so x squared, plus, and then we have y minus k. That's going to be y minus, our k value is 3. And that's going to equal the radius squared, and 3 squared is 9. So there's the equation for that circle. And just for vocabulary's sake, notice that the circle touches the x-axis one time. That's called a tangent line. So this circle is actually tangent to the x-axis. Let's look at problem number 12. Well, problem number 12, to get to the center of this circle, it appears that I have to go over 4 and then down 3. So this point, this center is going to be 4, negative 3. And the radius goes from x is 4 to x is 5. So it looks to me like the radius is actually 1 unit long. So the radius is 1. So the equation for that circle is going to be x minus 4 all raised to the power of 2, plus y minus negative 3, which is actually y plus 3, raised to the power of 2. And that's going to be equal to the radius squared. And since the radius is equal to 1, 1 squared is 1. So that would be the equation for that circle. Okay. Now for a challenge problem. I have a circle, and the diameter of the circle touches these 2 points. So let's think about what that picture may look like. If I have a circle, let me try to do a better job with the circle. I think I can. Let's see. Okay, something like this maybe. And we're told that the diameter, well, the diameter is going to look something like this. It's going to be a chord that passes through the center of the circle, right? So it's going to have to go through the center. And I'm going to make the claim that this is the diameter here. It's going to start here. It's going to go through the circle and land on the opposite side. So there's the diameter. And we know that one of the points is negative 17, negative 9. So we'll make that this point here. Negative 17, negative 9. And let's put the other point over here at negative 19, negative 9. Okay, now this is not drawn to scale, and that's not the point of the lesson today, so I'm not going to worry too much about the drawing, but I want to make a point. If this is the diameter, if the black line is the diameter, then half of that is the radius. And we need to know the radius length in order to write the equation of a circle, but we also need to know the center. I need to know where the center of this circle happens to be, what point. Well, in algebra, you learned a formula called the midpoint formula, and you're going to use it to find the center of the circle. And all you have to do is average the 2 x values and then average the 2 y values. So if I take negative 17 and I add to that the other x value, which is negative 19, that gives me negative 36. And if I divide negative 36 by 2, I get negative 18. So I know the x value is negative 18. And I do the same thing for the y values. Well, negative 9, if you add to that the other y value, which is negative 9, that gives you negative 18, and negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9.
This line.
So now we have the center and the radius of the circle, so we can write the equation. Oh, we don't have the radius yet. Okay. The radius is going to be it's going to be half of the diameter's length. So we have to get the length of the diameter. Well, the distance formula that you learned in algebra will give you that. So let's do the distance formula. The distance, or the length of the diameter, is found by taking the square root of the difference in the x's squared. Well, I have negative 17 minus a negative 19. That's negative 17 plus 19. That gives me 2. I have to square that. Then I do the difference in the y's squared. So negative 9 minus a negative 9 is actually 0, and 0 squared is 0. So I just add 0 there. And that gives me the square root of 2 squared, which is 4. And that means the radius of this thing has to equal 2. Now I know the center and I know the radius, so that would enable me to write the formula for this, the equation for this circle here. Now we're not going to write that at this point because we've already learned how to do that. Okay, let's talk one moment about the Pythagorean theorem and how the Pythagorean theorem can actually help us to figure out the length of a radius. If you happen to know on a circle, and let me try this again. Let's say you have a circle, and suppose I tell you that the center of the circle is located at 1, 1. And suppose I tell you that one of the points on the circle is 2, 3. Is it possible to figure out the length of this radius? Well, let's see. If I start here at 1, where x is 1, and I slide, let's see, let me make a right triangle here. If I start here, where x is equal to 1, and I slide over to this point here, where x is equal to 2, then that means I moved over 1 unit. And if I go up from y is 1 to y is 3, then I've gone up 2 units. So I can now figure out the length of the radius using the Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to say 1 squared plus 2 squared is equal to r squared. And 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, so that gives me 5 is equal to r squared. And if 5 is equal to r squared, then that means r has to be plus or minus the square root of 5. But since this is a distance problem, we will take the positive square root of 5. So let's see what we now know. We know the center of the circle is at 1, 1. We figured out that the radius length is the square root of 5. So now I have enough information to write the equation of the circle. So let's do that. It's going to be x minus 1 squared plus y minus 1 squared is equal to the square root of 5 squared, which is 5. So this would be the equation of the circle.